Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. When's the last time, Hannah, can you remember the last time you were in a Wendy's? Or any in a fast food place eating?
Like inside one, not going through the drive-through.
Right.
I can't. I don't remember. I have no idea.
Because they're not as designed for that anymore. And I don't think it was just the pandemic that changed that. Even before then, it seemed like the emphasis has been on the drive-through, and that's where Wendy's really set itself apart originally, was having a drive-through. But it's get your food and go, right? Just keep moving along, keep moving along. But there was a time, like I said earlier, that the dining room in these places was pretty full, like that you would go to a restaurant, and in most of my Wendy's experiences, they really tried to bring that old-fashioned hamburger, if not a home feel to it, at least like an old-timey restaurant feel to it. Even though they're from the 60s, like their original logo and the design, the decor of the building had a lot of brass and wood, to try to give you that feeling like you're in the 1910s or something, and everything is that way. Most Wendy's are located, despite having that, come and stay a while. You'll get your food quickly, but you can enjoy the dining room for, more than a little while to eat it. You're going to find Wendy's in the same places that you're going to find McDonald's and Burger King. And where is that usually? Typically, where do we find a lot of these fast food places?
Intersections off the side of the highway, places where it would be easily accessible to just continue right on your route.
And this company started in Columbus, Ohio. Has anybody on the chat today ever been to Columbus, Ohio, the capital of Ohio? I drove through Columbus a couple years ago. I had no idea how big that city is. It's massive, and it has, like a lot of big cities, an interstate highway going through it. And that's where you're going to find most, like you just said, most of these restaurants are off of the exit by interstate highways or some kind of massive road. You're not going to find a lot of Wendy's on secondary roads and more even suburban areas, not as much. They tend to be specifically highway food, right? What does that say about in late 1960s? What's going on with car culture and travel culture at that juncture?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm a little bit naive in the subject area of this time period, but if I were to guess, this is around the time that two-income houses are maybe becoming slightly more popular, where both people are working, and therefore you might have a greater need to have multiple cars. And so you kind of have this rise in car culture. It already been on the rise since cars had been a one per household thing. But I'm guessing this is kind of the boom of, the time where, might need multiple cars and more people are on the roads, more people are driving, less time is being spent at home cooking. And therefore you might need, again, you have more cars on the road, you need more cars, but you also need more places to stop and eat. along the way. And you might need to eat out more often since people aren't going to be at home cooking that often.
I think that's a wonderful assumption from this. And you can see the original Wendy's here on the screen. Pretty modern urban setting for the original one, but look at that signage. I mean, it looks, like I said before, turn of the century. It does, it's trying to evoke that feeling of that despite the reasons, and you just stated the reasons as to why travelers and local families would be going to Wendy's, it's almost saying, yeah, but you're taking part in this old company. It's been around for a long time. Even though the name Wendy wasn't even a name until 1904 when the story Peter Pan and Wendy was introduced. That was a name invented by um, the author of Peter Pan. Is like it has like that classic look to it, right? It almost looks like one of those old Coca-Cola ads from the same time period. So it's like that nice balance of meeting the needs of the modern American family and at the same time conveying this idea of, well, you're doing something that predates these high-speed roads and it predates, women working in professional jobs and, these modern cars that, we're working with here. I guess what you're saying is it does it fit in pretty well with the late 60s? Does it seem
Yeah, I think it definitely draws on that same like simple, good, old-fashioned image that appeals to a very, very wide audience, really, no matter if you come from, the hippie culture or you come from the straight edge culture. It's exactly what you said. It's a way to merge the aspects of modernity that people might be uncomfortable with while emphasizing the old-fashioned traditions of the American lifestyle. So it's merging the two together and maybe drawing in an audience that maybe would be uncomfortable, or maybe is not very happy with the changes in society ongoing, kind of brings them into this new world.
Victor, Tammy, any thoughts on Wendy's and either their establishment, where you find them, or the reason why they were able to spread across the country and across there's locations all over the globe. I remember seeing a Wendy's in Ireland, which was kind of weird, but
I think that Wendy's kind of, like you say, it gives you that old fashioned feel because the little pigtails. I mean, that it always reminded me of Pippi Longstocking.
yeah.
That picture did. And so you've got this old fashioned good food, but we're going to get you this old fashioned good food as fast as McDonald's because even the colors, because the colors, it's like that red and white and yellow, just like McDonald's, red, white, and yellow. I mean, that's seems to be fast food seems to like red, white, and yellow. So yeah, so they're basically saying we are going to get you this really good food, but we're going to do it as quick as McDonald's will get you, you know. And even the little aprons they wear, because that picture,
Mhm.
I remember when they wore the apron and all that. So, and I live in a small town, and we have not had a Wendy's for that long. I think maybe 10 years. So, but and the first one went in near the interstate.
Is the one that you have, because I know they've changed their business model a little bit, does it have just one cash register where you order and pick up, or do they have multiple?
They have two drive-throughs, and then you
Wow.
go just like McDonald's, you go through the thing and you pay at the first window and pick up your food at the second window.
Okay.
Yeah, but I accept if sometimes in the morning, especially, they'll only have one window open, but they are set up for they're set up exactly like McDonald's.
Because I,
Almost.
I used to, for a long time, the Wendy's that I would frequent had a queuing line. It was an actual, they had a wooden and brass line that to tell you where to go, and they would just have their system was much different from McDonald's, where they just had one cashier taking the orders, and then almost on purpose, they had the food preparation area within sight of the where you ordered. And so you'd actually watch them make your food instead of McDonald's, especially the modern McDonald's, where and Burger King where they're making the food in the back, and the first time you get a glimpse of it is when they slide it down the chute to be included into your order. Wendy's always had you could watch the assembly line make your food right in front of you. And the single cashier it would create for long lines, of course, but it seemed to, kind of allow for a more orderly pickup to it.
Okay, what you're saying, because when they originally built it, if you went inside, you did have to go. It was almost like going to the amusement park. They
Yeah.
had the metal things, and you ordered at one register and you picked up the food at the second one, and you could see in the back and everything. They remodeled, and when they did that, that's when now it's just like going to McDonald's. I mean, literally the inside is almost exactly the same. There's no, little thing where you have to go through the metal bars, and
Mhm.
there's not, you order, but then you just kind of go to the side and they just put the food on, they'll call your number and
Yeah. And it
really don't
seems
go
to
in
have
any.
almost lost a certain aspect of that original charm that they were
Right.
going for by
Yeah.
doing that. Because that that was one of the things that set them apart. And like, so when you leave the highway and you're looking for something quick to eat, you have all your options. You're like, okay, I know what McDonald's deal is there. I know Burger King. They got the Wendy's. All three of those restaurants, the same experience when you go to the drive-through, but the indoor experience might be a little bit different. That was what Wendy's seems to have, like, modern times on the outside, old fashioned on the inside, right? But now that they've just made them all look the same, it doesn't have quite that same distinction.
The biggest distinction now is that, I mean, because I've noticed it anyway. They Because all of them, like Wendy's, the only ones that didn't was Hardee's, and Hardee's is just, you're going to Hardee's because you want a lot of grease and a lot of salt, and but McDonald's and most of the other restaurants went to, they had salads, and healthy choices, and now most of them, if you want a salad, you like really have to look, or you have to ask for it, and it won't even be on the menu board anymore. But Wendy's always still has their 4 different salads that you can
Mhm.
get, and they still, it's still right up there, and they almost push that. Whereas a lot of the fast food restaurants now, that's kind of it's over on the side, or you just have to know they have it,
Mhm.
and they don't. They went back to, this is fast food. It's not going to be healthy. So yeah,
You know what you're getting.
yeah. But Wendy's still has
No,
that.
now
To
you
me, they
mentioned
have
that
a
that
better variety
mhm.
that's actually good.
Yeah, they used to have a baked potato. I don't know if they still do baked
Yeah,
potato anymore.
uh,
Chili.
yeah, because still do the chili, because they still do the taco salad. They still do taco salads
That's
there.
true.
Yeah, I think they still have the baked potato. I usually go in the mornings now, so I don't see the afternoon menu. But yeah, they to me, they just have a better. To me, it's better for kids because there's something on there that everybody in your family is going to eat. You've got salads for whoever. Like if your wife is not wanting to eat a bunch of junk, you've got nuggets and stuff for the kids, and the big triple burger or the Baconator
Yeah.
burger. That's the big guy burger, and so they have a pretty good variety for a family. I think they're still pushing the family thing.
And I don't know if they're ever going to lose that, honestly,
Yeah.
especially with the name of their restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Victor, what was your thoughts?
But one of the things that I was going to mention was just uh, if I was going to look at it more of a macro level, that um, early at its founding, most of the restaurants had a social influence where they would keep the families together, to keep them in the dining room. There was interaction between the wait staff and the customer. Whereas now it's taken a less social influence and a more economic influence with the for the sake of efficiency,
Mhm.
because of profit margin, and all of that goes into the national or international provisions. And so with that, I guess another question would be, is that um, a cause of the social uh, shift in the way we relate as humans in the States,
Mhm.
or is it a reflection of how we do that?
And adding another layer to it, maybe the answer to both those questions might even have to do with Dave Thomas no longer being with us and obviously the company, because he was very hands-on. He would routinely go to the restaurants and actually help in the kitchen, preparing the food and talk to the customers and get that. And he seemed to add, a certain level of what you were just describing as part of his vision for the company. That kind of relationship building with your customers and making them feel that they made the right choice by coming to that restaurant versus some of the other ones. Something very similar happened to Howard Johnson's, when Howard Johnson himself passed away. The company kind of lost uh its traction for a while. They never really recovered. They're all but gone now. And I think also with Disney, you can definitely see in the entertainment world a dip in Disney's what they were able to produce between their parks and their media after Walt died. That there was a lull in what they were producing and what their priorities were. And now that Wendy's is just another one of those places, is Dave Thomas's uh oversight on the company isn't there anymore. I'm curious if that's a cause for it too, because the company and where and the more I think about it, it definitely fits into the time period perfectly. That late 60s was a very much a crossroads, perfect for the setting for these, like for the country, almost a fork in the road as far as like which path do we want to go down. We just elected a holdover from a previous time, Richard Nixon, who'd been vice president in the golden age of the Eisenhower administration, and yet, he's talking silent majority, and he's trying to, bring back, very almost nostalgic throwback feel to it. I mean, think about some of the pop albums and the movies that would be made over the next couple years. You had a lot of nostalgia between Grease and even Star Wars is a nostalgia movie. It's old serial uh type picture, movie serial. And Happy Days, became hugely popular. American Graffiti, 1973. I mean, this is an era of the country almost in turmoil with itself of like, what do we want and how do we want it, right? I didn't think Wendy's would bring up such a conversation, but and so like their placement of their restaurants in those places that we listed earlier also answers that call. I mean, the interstate highways are very, very modern roads, especially in the time period they opened, but a lot of them serve the same purpose that other forms of transportation have always done. I was just driving last week on the New York Thruway, which is uh, I-90 for most of it. Well, I-90 and I-87 make up the New York State Thruway. And of course, that runs directly parallel to the Erie Canal. And directly parallel to that is the train tracks that run across the entire state and the country. And so it's like the interstate highways are just the most recent version of uh, national travel. And so it's like these companies that grow up around it share a lot of those same kinds of qualities.
I've found the topic about why they're shifting now, and why we're seeing a less focus on like what Victor said, like the social aspect of these restaurants. And I think that a big part of that story has been the internet, because I think that with the internet brought a huge increase in the speed of information. And when that speed of information increased, so did the speed of every other aspect of life. Because now, when you sent a letter to someone through email, you expected it back, pretty soon, maybe by the end of the day, rather than maybe waiting a few days for a response. As things continually speed up like that, now people are wanting responses within the hour, and you just genuinely feel like you don't have enough time. You're doing so much more and you're processing so much more in such a shorter amount of time, and maybe not a shorter amount of time, but in the same amount of time. That it genuinely feels like you don't have a lot of time. So if you're wasting time standing in line while you watch the workers socialize with the guests in front of you, you're going to get really frustrated, right? You just want to get home, you just want to get to work, you just want to get to where you need to be, and you don't really want to have to stand in line and put up with all that. It might be nice for you to receive it. It's not nice to wait in line for 20 minutes while all that kind of stuff goes on. So as customers get more frustrated with that kind of stuff and are wanting to get through their daily tasks quicker and quicker, it's just going to be natural that stores start to eliminate those kinds of aspects to their, I guess, programs, their functionings, their systems. And I think a great example of this is a new business, actually, that just started in 2001 here in New Hampshire, which might not be known to you guys down in Georgia and Florida, but it's the name, the coffee franchise, Roma Joe's. And I feel like they are a great epitome of what the new franchise is. It's these little tiny shacks. Some of them have cafes, but the majority of them don't have cafes at all. They're just drive-through. You go through, but unlike other drive-throughs, you don't order through a screen. You actually drive up and you order at the window, and then you pick up at the window as well. So you're face to face. And so it's a little bit more of that face-to-face socialization, but it's in a modern twist. It's no longer you're going inside to get that. Now it's face-to-face. I actually had experience working at Aroma Joe's for 4 years, where we were encouraged to say things like, how's your day going? I was allowed to give away one free drink a month to a customer who maybe was a regular, or if someone was clearly having a bad day but forgot their wallet. And so we were encouraged to do those things that were just kind of maybe smaller, quicker versions of what we used to see in fast food. And I really wouldn't be surprised if other fast food places start copying that kind of model.
With Wendy's, one of their most popular menu items. I'm surprised they haven't capitalized on it more, because it was very much, I don't want to say fan, but patron made, and that's Frosty and fries. That was like something that the customers themselves recognized. Ooh, that's a fun combination. Get a Biggie fry and get a Frosty and dip the fries into the Frosty, get the salty and the sweet and the hot and the cold all in one bite. And sort of like how McDonald's, they leaned into it more a couple years ago. They had a few meals. I forget the name of there was a rapper that had a particular order from McDonald's, and then
I was going to mention that because there's a bunch of stores doing that right now. Like, so many are popping up with these collaborations with all these influencers, if you want to call them that, but it's interesting.
And Wendy's, their latest commercial have been, they've kind of, it reminds me a lot of the progressive commercials, where they have almost like a cast, like from a sitcom, of all these employees, and they put them in different situations around the workplace, and they're funny, and they do silly things and stuff like that. But you don't really see them associating with the customers very much. In the ads in the 1980s for a lot of these companies, including McDonald's, you would see, little scenes from the restaurant, right? Of like a little kid getting their Happy Meal, and, seeing maybe a baseball team coming in from the game. And Wendy's, their push seems to be more like, this is our employees, like this is where they all are all day long. The customers aren't really as important to them as them being happy and having fun at work. And it's maybe the wrong message. I'm not sure if Dave Thomas would have much to say about that, but it seems like we had a lot to say about Wendy's, and I really appreciate all of the input. Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything as a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.